Well, a busy day at Twickenham yesterday, and a surprising one as well when it came to the England captaincy. I thought so. Anyway, I didn't see Maro Itoje being promoted and replacing Jamie George coming. So we're going to get into that in this video, plus the wider England Six Nations squad. Welcome back to the channel. I wanted to do this video yesterday. I was at Twickenham. It was a busy day. I just didn't get round to it by the time I finished doing everything that I wanted to do. So I thought, now we've had a night to sleep on it. What do you make of A, the decision to change captain? The timing, I think, is pretty fascinating. And B, what do you make of this squad? An England side that need to perform in the Six Nations. They are under pressure on the back of 2024. Let me know in the comments. Welcome back to the channel. Like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. So, captaincy first of all. The big question is why? I think there are multiple factors here. Borthwick spoke about it yesterday, and he's one of those head coaches that you're kind of trying to read between the lines a lot of the time. He's not necessarily the most direct in giving you all the answers. A big part of it, I think, is having a captain that is on the field for 80 minutes. Jamie George, we saw coming off in the second half of games throughout November. I think he wants someone that is consistently going to be playing the full 80. Maro is probably the obvious candidate there. He very, very rarely is replaced for England. Possibly the form of the hookers as well. I've seen it suggested, people questioning whether Jamie George should be England's #1 hooker. You want your captain to be one of the first names on the team sheet, a guy that you know is going to be starting every single week. But outside of that, it's still interesting. And firstly, I'll say I really feel for Jamie George here. I think he is a great bloke. I think he is a good captain. I think he's a good player, very respected leader and player within that England squad, and has been quite an important captain in many ways for England, in particular in reconnecting the team to the fans. Off the back of Owen Farrell being captain, as great a player as Farrell was, he was the sort of character that maybe a section of the fan base didn't necessarily warm to. I think Jamie George reconnected that with the fans. And I look back on the autumn and I was at those games at Twickenham and sat in the post-match press conference with Jamie George looking absolutely shattered, like gutted at those heartbreaking defeats. He was, I think, more in tune emotionally with the fan base than Steve Borthwick was at that moment in time, in terms of the message they were conveying in that press conference. And then off the back of that, to be relieved of the captain duties is brutal. It's professional sport, it's big decisions have to be made, I understand that, but I think still from an empathy point of view, I do feel for Jamie George here, and I still think his leadership has an important role to play in this team. The other thing I would say as well, on the second point I mentioned previously about why and the suggestion that the form of Luke Cowan-Dickie or Theo Dan could be a reason that Jamie George isn't certain of starting, I personally don't see that. I think Jamie George is still clearly the #1 hooker. I think Cowan-Dickie is excellent, but with all his injury track record, there's a question there. Theo Dan, I don't think, has kicked on in 2024. I think he had a good 2023 when he came into the team, but hasn't necessarily kicked on since then. So for me, it's not a question of form and whether Jamie George is the starting hooker for England. For me, he still comfortably is. Ultimately, though, what I will say in favour of Steve Borthwick is this is a big, bold call. And going back to the why, everything we know about Borthwick as a coach, he is meticulous in his preparation, in his detail, and ultimately he thinks this is the best decision for the team to move them forward. Rather than waiting for another period in time or maybe giving it until the Lions tour, that would probably be a cleaner break from the captaincy. He's making the decision now. And I suppose as well with Maro, he has been billed as an England captain since pretty much he became a professional rugby player. Then there are a lot of questions over him as a captain. Was he so focused on being the best individual player? Could he lead a team? I mean, he's been club captain at Saracens now. He's captained England previously. He has developed into that role and he has got into the position that many people, many years ago, predicted he would. Maybe it's taken a little bit longer than expected. So overall, I feel for Jamie George. I think Maro will do a good job. And is it going to be the right voice, the right leader to take this team forward? Because they're in a tricky spot. They have to progress. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. You let me know your thoughts on it. Elsewhere, this is the full squad, which I flashed up on the screen a moment ago. A few different bits to get into here. First off, I suppose the injuries actually and some of the absentees. George Furbank is out. Very unlikely to be back, could be back for the end of the Six Nations. Sam Underhill, likewise, I think they're expecting to miss the whole tournament. And Emmanuel Faye-Boso has had shoulder injury, so he is also going to be out for England. Couple of debutants in there, Oscar Beard and Caden Murley. The Harlequins boys are the uncapped players in the squad. Will Caden Murley finally get his England debut? Fans are always clamouring for him too. And some of the other maybe headlines from this, Tom Willis is included, the number 8 who wasn't part of the autumn squad, and Ted Hill as well, often a name you see when England squad are announced when he's not there, people saying he should be. He's in as well. Do any of those players, the debutants, Tom Willis, Ted Hill, get into the team? Do we see them in the Six Nations? Because if you think back to the November internationals, Alex Lazowski was one of the exciting names back in the England fold after a long, long time, and then you don't see him all autumn. Borthwick is a conservative coach in some ways, but continuity is absolutely paramount for him. Building experience and players playing together in an England jersey is one of the things he's been most committed to, certainly last year and in his England tenure. So actually, do we see any of those players? It's great to see them in the squad, but will they get into the matchday 23? I think out of all of them, Tom Willis is the guy that you'd say has the best chance of doing that. But we'll wait and see. The big absentee, by the way, I think is Ben Spencer. Started the November as England scrum half, comes to the Six Nations, and he's not there at all. Alex Mitchell has returned, but I think that still could well be the end of Ben Spencer's international career. We'll wait and see. Dan Cole as well, I should say. He's not there as they're looking to move on and develop some of those front row options. So this is the breakdown. It's often quite helpful to look at it this way when you get a squad, to be able to look at it by position. The loose head props, you got Ellis Genge, Finn Baxter, and hang on, let me find this here. Finn Baxter and Bevan Rodd. Hookers, Luke Cowan-Dickey, Jamie George, and Theo Dan, as I mentioned already. On the tight head side, you've got Asher Opoku Forjaw, Joe Hayes, Will Stewart. Second row, Itoje, Chesham. I think we'll see him play 6. George Martin, Alex Coles. Flankers, Chandler Cunningham South, the Curry boys, and Ted Hill. And number 8, Willis, Dombrandt, Earl. Earl could be a 7, plays 8 for England. JVP Mitchell and Harry Randall as the scrum halves. Fly half, Marcus Smith, Finn Smith, George Ford. Centres, Dingwall, Lawrence Slade, Beard. Wings, Daly, Freeman, Murley, Roebuck, Slightholme. And fullback, Freddie Stewart, the only out-and-out recognised fullback. So out of all of that, what are some of the other big talking points? As I say there, I think the return of Ollie Chesham is huge for England. I think it's likely that we see Maro Itoje and George Martin continue in the second row. I think we'll see Ollie Chesham play 6. And what that does, I think, is change the complexion and the strength of the England bench, because Chandler Cunningham South is then going to be coming off the bench. I think the back row will be Chesham, Earl still at number 8, and Tom Curry at 7, I would imagine. But that gives you the option of a Tom Willis coming off the bench. Dombrandt has struggled for most of his international career up to this point. He's not vastly experienced, but I don't think he's ever fully looked like an international quality number 8, as good as he is for Harlequins. So I think Tom Willis coming in and being a bench option strengthens that area of the game. And I think Chesham just changes the dynamics. It means you don't necessarily have to have a second row if you don't want to on your bench, because you've got him there, you've got Martin, you've got Itoje, you can do some different things there. And the impact of the bench was a major issue throughout the autumn. I think that's an area that hopefully with this England squad, they get more out of it. We'll wait and see. Scrum half, as I say, Mitchell will come back into the squad and will be the starter. Fly half. As has often been the case in recent memory, fly half discussion will be massive for England. Marcus Smith was the guy in the autumn, and actually in a poor autumn, from an attacking point of view, was England's shining light. So does he continue at fly half, or because of the absence of George Furbank, does Marcus Smith have a role to play at fullback? I suppose it depends what you want to do, what sort of game you're expecting. And I should say, by the way, with Freddie Stewart, I think he's been excellent. I think he's adding layers to his game. He's still brilliant in the air. He's better with ball in hand now. But to play the kind of fast attacking game that England want to, and they have been trying to do last year, where Furbank fit into that system so well, is someone like Marcus Smith going to be an option there? Don't know, it's an unpopular one because I know he's a fly half, but I think that is something we could potentially see. In the centres, I expect it's going to be Lawrence and Slade again. I think Oscar Beard, I don't think we're going to see. Dingwall's an interesting one, but I think Borthwick will go with his tried and tested. And then in the absence of Faye Wilboso, what will it be? Freeman on one wing, Roebuck, Slightholme, one of those two. Elliot Daly being back in is not a popular choice based upon social media comments, which isn't always the best barometer. But what he gives ultimately is England a very versatile, I think, number 23 option. Even though he wasn't involved in the autumn, do we see Elliot Daly in the Six Nations because he gives them a bit more flexibility amongst the replacements, particularly if Freddie Stewart is the only recognised fullback in the squad? Those are kind of my general thoughts. What do you make of it? Have your say in the comment section, like the video as well, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. And let me know what you make of the captaincy as well. Maro Itoje, was it the 136th England captain of the men's team? Appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next one.